Hello, beautiful souls. So I felt inspired to talk about somatics a little bit. So how do we relate to connect with what is happening with our bodies and the intelligence of our bodies? There's so much here. We could talk for a very long time. But what I wanted to focus on today is how to communicate with our bodies when we're doing process work and find out what it has to share with us, how our body's communicating, how to tap in and connect with it. Because for a lot of people, what I find when I'm working with clients, and especially if we're processing trauma, a lot of times it'll go into the body, right? Because the body, it somaticizes, meaning that some of what we experience is still in the body, and the body has something that it would like to share about it or needs to let go of around it. So a lot of times, even when we have mentally processed trauma, meaning that we've talked it through, sometimes we can miss the emotional part still. We can go see something under hypnosis, for instance, and not actually process the emotions around it. We can know that something happened, but not actually process the emotions around it. And then there's also the body memory of it. The body actually, the cells have their own memory of what we experience. And especially if it's something traumatic, it can get trapped in the nervous system. It can get trapped in the tissues. So a lot of times when we have something repeatedly kind of showing up for us, let's say it's a sore shoulder, and it's always the same one, and there's not an injury per se. Like, it's not like, you tore your rotator cuff or something, or you have bursitis. It's like, it's just the shoulder is like talking to you, regularly. So coming into a meditative place, however you get there, if you've worked with me a little bit and you know how to connect with source, or you have your own way that you like to connect with source, that's a good place to start. I recommend connecting with earth, connecting with source, and then going inside, asking to be guided. You can even ask for your inner guide, which is a part of your own consciousness that lives in your body, in your being, in your consciousness, to take you to that shoulder, take you to that part that is talking, right? Because when we have that pain and we have that soreness, that's our body's way of communicating. So that's a form of talking. So take us there and talk to it. Talk to it like you talk to your friend or your neighbor or a family member. And you can start by saying, hey, I'm observing this, which can be, I'm observing pain and discomfort, in this left shoulder repeatedly. Obviously, we've been to the chiropractor, we've done the massage, whatever it is, wherever you're at in that journey, just kind of touching in. And this is really like a casual conversation. There's no pressure behind it. And that's a really big thing. Not going into it with, I'm going to make you stop doing this. Because what happens when we come at something with energy like that, right? Usually like that, which if you're having pain and tension, it's already a contraction. So when we come at it with that hard energy, it just usually contracts more. So we want to go in with curiosity and gentleness. So, and being open to, without, as much as possible, without expectations, being open to however this goes. So, hey, I'm noticing, this is my experience on my end, that I'm having a lot of pain and discomfort. And it doesn't even have to be this much of a conversation if you don't want. This is just me being very vocal, but it can just be you just going in there and just sitting there with presence. So sometimes when a friend is having a really hard time, they don't want to talk about it, but just sitting next to them and being present makes a really big difference, right? So maybe that's what that shoulder needs. And again, I'm just going back to the example of shoulder because I'm staying consistent, but this can be anything. If you have digestive issues, this can be wherever you feel those primarily, if that's your stomach, your lower GI, your upper GI, whatever it is. So sometimes we need to just sit next to or with our pain and discomfort. And sometimes if we just do that, sometimes that's all it wants, is for us to really just be present with it. Sometimes people will find that it starts to let go, it starts to dissolve, it starts to unwind, whatever the word is you want to use, already, just by choosing to bring presence to it, acknowledging it, not asking it to go away, and not ignoring it, which we've probably already been doing for a while, usually by the time we get to this place, right? So if you have done that, or that's not what feels like it wants to happen, what are some of the questions or ways that you can inquire of this energy to get a little bit more clarity? You can say things like, is there something you're upset about that you might want to share? And if you don't want to share, that's okay. But I'm curious, are you upset about something? So you kind of, you talk to it like a friend, like a neighbor, and you come with it, at it with the compassion you would a child, right? So that also really helps, because you're going to be extra gentle with that part of yourself. So coming at it with that compassion, with that understanding, and the curiosity and the gentleness, sharing what you are noticing and experiencing, and then giving it room to respond. And if it seems like it really just doesn't want to go to that place, then maybe just sitting with it, just being present with it. Letting it know also that however it feels, it's okay. If it's tense, it's okay. If it's tense and it doesn't know why, that's okay too. If you're feeling like you're not okay, that's okay too. So sometimes just giving ourselves permission to be where we're at can be really, really valuable, right? Because there's so much pressure all the time to achieve and produce, right? Get to the next thing, the next thing. What have you done today? Being with. How can we just be with? So sometimes that's what our body requires, is us just being with. And sometimes there's a little bit more inquiry and a little bit more conversation to be had. And if you find that it's carrying something really heavy and it's something that you don't feel like you can work out on your own, you can get help and you can get support for that. There are all different kinds of therapies these days, not just talk therapy. There's all kinds of different somatic therapy, somatic movement, somatic experiencing, all different. You just do a little research and you'll find all kinds of options out there for what is possible to get some help. You don't have to do it alone, but this is a way to communicate with that body part that probably has felt alone, so that it knows it doesn't have to do it alone, right? Oftentimes, that body part is holding a piece of our consciousness that wants to communicate, that has been doing things alone. So we become its company, we become its therapist, and then we might need company, we might need a therapist, right? So the supportive team starts with being our own best parent to all parts of ourselves, our consciousness, and that includes our body consciousness and the parts of us that are within that body consciousness. A lot of times also, what can happen is that we have inner child parts, or just inner parts that aren't even children, that are within that pain or discomfort. So the consciousness of the body, it has its own voice and it will talk to you. And then you may also find that there are other parts in there that have things to share, that have been maybe hiding or tucked away. And I think it's important to embrace all of this on our healing journey and learn how to communicate with these parts and not treat them as separate, but something to be curious with and inquire and be present to, above and beyond. So even just if it's my left shoulder that's hurting, like what happens if I just rest my hand on my left shoulder? Obviously it's gonna be my right hand, but just rest it there and breathe. Just even bringing that much consciousness. A lot of times, or just close your eyes and breathe. Your breath can be used as a tool to expand any area of your body. So what I mean by that is that I can actually breathe into my shoulder. And if you've done much yoga in your life, then you probably you know how to do this. But you bring your breath in there like it's a balloon inside the shoulder, and it expands the space in there. So I'm going to show you like with my chest, right? Which everybody should be able to do because your lungs are in your chest. But if you shift that focus right into the shoulder and just bring a little stretch, a little expansion with the breath into the shoulder, that gives it permission on a somatic level to expand a little bit because it's been contracted. Just expand a little bit just by bringing the breath in there. Not asking it to change or doing anything different, just basically like feeding it oxygen. Okay, you can think of it that way. You don't have to ask it to change or do anything different. Just feed it some oxygen and see what happens. And do that for at least 3 times. If you can, 5 to 10, even better. All right, I think that's all the tips for now about somatics and connecting with the body. Let me know if any questions come up. Happy to answer them. If there's specific things you want me to do a video about, let me know. No guarantee I'll do it, but probably. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Feel free to hit subscribe and the bell notification so that you can be notified when videos come out. In the future, I'll probably be giving intermingled with the rest of the things I'm doing on videos, probably doing some somatic exercises to help you to release more from the body and ultimately to become more embodied, because I believe that's the whole goal here. So embodied, uniquely sharing our wisdom. All right, lots of love, everybody.